I have proof she's cheating, Amanda, my sister-in-law, said as she dramatically pulled out a manila envelope. Everyone gathered around the dining table, gasping as she spread out photos on the shiny wooden surface. I sat quietly at the end of the table, sipping my water and watching. My name is Sophie Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and I was watching my husband's family try to ruin my 8-year marriage. The irony was hard to miss. The photos showed me meeting different men over the past month, having lunch, coffee, and even dinner. In each picture, I looked like I was having deep conversations, smiling, leaning in, and sometimes touching their hands. To someone who didn't know better, it looked bad. Look at these, Amanda said with excitement. While David has been working hard, she's been running around town with other men. She turned to my husband, who sat still next to his mistress, Jessica. Now you don't have to feel guilty about Jessica, and you definitely don't have to give Sophie anything in the divorce. David didn't look at me. His mother, Eleanor, picked up a photo with shaky hands. Sophie, how could you? We welcomed you into our family. A long time ago, her disappointment would have hurt me. Now, I just smiled inside. Well? Amanda pushed. What do you have to say for yourself? I calmly put my glass down and looked around the table. David still wouldn't meet my eyes. His parents looked upset, though I noticed his father, George, seemed more uncomfortable than angry. Amanda stood tall, one hand on her hip, pointing at the photos. Nice pictures, I said. The lighting is great. You must have paid your private investigator a lot. Amanda's smirk faded. She hadn't expected that. That's all you have to say, she snapped. You're not even going to deny it? I reached into my purse, everyone tense, waiting for tears or a confession. Instead, I pulled out my tablet and set it on the table. Why would I deny it? I asked, my voice calm. Those men are all divorce lawyers. Silence. What? Amanda stuttered. I pointed at the photos. That's James Morrison, the best family lawyer in the city. This is Michael Chen. His firm specializes in cases involving cheating. And this dinner? That's William Parker. He's great at handling cases where people try to hide money before divorce. Amanda's face turned pale. David suddenly found his water glass very interesting. You see, I continued, when I found out about David and Jessica 3 months ago, I decided to prepare. You're lying, Amanda said, but she didn't sound sure. I turned on my tablet. That's the great thing about legal meetings. There's always proof. I pulled up emails and signed agreements. But that's not even the most interesting part, I said, looking at David. Eleanor's voice shook. What do you mean? Well, I said, during one meeting, I learned something about recent property transfers in this family. Lots of money and houses changing hands. New companies being formed. I let my words sink in. George shifted uncomfortably. David frowned. Dad, is that why you had me sign those papers last month? You said it was just routine family business. I watched as realization hit him. His family wasn't just helping him cheat. They were hiding money before the divorce. David, sweetheart, we were just protecting you, Eleanor started. I cut her off. Actually, you were committing fraud. I smiled. And my lawyers have proof. Amanda sank into a chair, defeated. You knew, she whispered. You knew this whole time. I nodded and grabbed my things. Next time you hire a private investigator, make sure they're not working for both sides. I stood up, fixing my dress. Oh, and those lawyers. I officially hired the best one yesterday. I walked to the door, then turned back. David, your lawyer will get the paperwork tomorrow. You might want to read it carefully, especially the part about fraud. And Amanda. I met her shocked eyes. Thanks for the photos. They'll make great evidence. My heels clicked on the floor as I left. In my car, I finally allowed myself a small smile. They thought they had trapped me. They had no idea what was coming. The next few days were full of chaos. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from David's family. Some were threats, others were tearful pleas. Amanda, especially, kept switching between anger and panic. Her texts became more desperate. You can't do this to us, her latest message read. We're family. I thought about that word, family. They hadn't treated me like family when they were planning to leave me with nothing. I ignored her message and focused on my preparations. James Morrison's law office was exactly what I expected: shiny wood, leather chairs, and an air of power. I sat in the conference room, reviewing documents while waiting. Right on time, David walked in with his lawyer, followed by Eleanor and George. Amanda was last, trying to look confident but failing. "Mrs. Bennet," James greeted me with a nod. "Shall we begin?" I watched David's face as James laid out the evidence. He turned pale when we presented our timeline. Every shady property transfer, every new company, every attempt to hide money. Eleanor grabbed his arm when James mentioned possible criminal charges. "This is nonsense," David's lawyer said. "These were just normal family business decisions." "Are they?" I asked, sliding a stack of papers forward. "Because these documents show my name was removed from family business assets 3 months ago, right when David started his affair. Quite a coincidence, don't you think?" George shifted in his seat. He was always the weakest link, too worried about his social reputation to risk the scandal. "Now," James continued, "we're willing to be reasonable. Mrs. Bennet helped build this family's success. She only wants her fair share." "Fair share?" Amanda snapped. "She's trying to ruin us." I turned to her, calm as ever. "No, Amanda. I'm protecting what I helped create. Would you like me to play the recording of you and David discussing how to keep that gold digger from getting anything?" Her face went white. David's head snapped up. "You recorded us?" "No," I replied calmly. "Your mistress did. Jessica was quite helpful once I showed her proof that you were planning to leave her too, once you'd secured your assets." The room erupted into chaos. Eleanor was crying, George was demanding to speak to his personal lawyer, and Amanda was screaming about betrayal. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching my husband realize just how thoroughly he'd been outplayed. "Here's what's going to happen," James spoke over the noise, his voice commanding silence. "We have documented evidence of attempted fraud. We can pursue this criminally, or we can reach a reasonable settlement today. Your choice." David's lawyer requested a moment with his client. As they huddled in the corner, I could see the fight leaving David's body. He'd always been arrogant, convinced of his own cleverness, but now he looked deflated. "We'll agree to fair terms," his lawyer finally announced. "Excellent," James smiled. "Mrs. Bennet has already outlined her requirements." He distributed copies of the settlement proposal. I'd been thorough but not vindictive. I wanted what I'd helped build, nothing more. "This is outrageous," Eleanor exclaimed, but George placed a restraining hand on her arm. "Sign it, David," he said quietly. "We can't risk this getting out." As David picked up the pen, Amanda made one last desperate attempt. "Wait. Those photos. They were in public places. She was flaunting these meetings." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "Of course they were public. I wanted you to see them. Every lunch, every coffee meeting. I knew you were having me followed. I just made sure your investigator got exactly what I wanted you to see." The realization that they'd been played at their own game finally silenced them. One by one, the documents were signed. As James gathered the paperwork, I stood to leave. "Sophie," David called out, his voice strange. "When did you get so calculating?" I paused at the door. I learned from the best, didn't I? Family taught me. The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone in the room. As I walked out of the office, I felt lighter than I had in months. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about showing them they underestimated you all along. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and clean. My phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "It's done. Thank you for showing me the truth about him." I smiled, remembering how easy it had been to turn David's mistress into my ally once I showed her proof of his pattern of betrayal. She'd been more than happy to share the recordings of his promises to her. His plans to discard her just like me once he'd secured his wealth. Sometimes the strongest alliances come from unexpected places. As I drove home, I thought about family, not the one that had betrayed me, but the one I would build for myself now, on my own terms. 6 months after the settlement, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping coffee and watching the city wake up. The morning sun cast long shadows across my recently furnished living room, highlighting the fresh start I'd made for myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Of all people. We'd maintained an unlikely friendship after everything. "You won't believe who I just saw at Riverside Cafe, Amanda." She actually tried to pretend she didn't see me. I smiled, remembering how thoroughly the family had unraveled after our meeting. The carefully constructed facade of the perfect family business had cracked under the weight of their own schemes. George had retired early, claiming health issues, but everyone knew it was to avoid the whispers at his precious country club. Eleanor had thrown herself into charity work, desperately trying to maintain their social standing. Amanda, perhaps, had faced the harshest reality check. Her role in the attempted fraud had cost her her position in the family company. Last I heard, she was working as a junior accountant at a small firm, a significant step down from her former executive title. My phone rang. It was James Morrison. "Sophie," he greeted warmly, "just wanted to let you know the last of the transfers are complete. Everything's officially settled." "Thank you, James, for everything." "You know," he said, his tone thoughtful, "in all my years practicing law, I've never seen someone handle betrayal with such strategic precision. Have you ever considered a career change?" I laughed, but his words stuck with me. In outmaneuvering David and his family, I discovered parts of myself I never knew existed: strength, cunning, and an ability to see 3 moves ahead. Later that afternoon, I met Laura, my closest friend, for lunch. She'd been my rock throughout everything, one of the few people who knew the whole story from the beginning. "Have you heard?" she asked, sliding into her seat. "David's been demoted. Apparently, some of his business decisions during the whole divorce drama didn't sit well with the board." I shook my head. "I'm not surprised. He always did think he was smarter than everyone else." Speaking of smart, Laura leaned forward. "How's the new venture going?" After the settlement, I used part of my settlement to start a consulting firm, helping other women navigate complex divorces and financial disputes. It felt right, using my experience to help others protect themselves. "We're expanding," I said, unable to hide my pride. "Opened a second office last week." "Look at you," Laura grinned. "From being blindsided by your husband's betrayal to running your own empire. Who would have thought?" I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to believe in family loyalty above all else. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, but not bitter. If anything, I was grateful for the lessons learned. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Eleanor. "I miss you. The family isn't the same without you." I archived it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. That evening, as I reviewed applications for my firm's mentorship program, I reflected on how life had changed. The family that had tried to destroy me had inadvertently set me free. Their attempts to leave me with nothing had pushed me to become something more than I'd ever imagined. The doorbell rang. It was Jessica with a bottle of wine. Our monthly catch-up sessions had become a tradition of sorts. "To Karma." She raised her glass, settling onto my couch. "David's dating someone new, by the way. Poor girl has no idea what she's getting into." "Should we warn her?" I asked, half joking. Jessica laughed. "Something tells me she'll figure it out on her own. Besides, I hear she's quite clever with computers. Maybe she'll catch on faster than we did." We shared a knowing look. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward while watching karma do its work. As the sun set over the city, casting an orange glow through my windows, I felt at peace. The family that had tried to write me off as naive had taught me the most valuable lesson of all. Never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. My new life wasn't built on revenge or bitterness. It was built on wisdom, strength, and the knowledge that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best beginnings. I raised my glass to the setting sun, silently thanking them for teaching me exactly who I could become. The story of how my husband's family tried to destroy me had become the catalyst for my greatest transformation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better.